Well, hello everybody and welcome back to Coffee Chat. I'm super excited to be here. Once again, it seems like Tuesdays just fly by. The weeks are flying by.
It does. It flies by, and then it feels like once you hit Tuesday, it's like the rest of the week is just all downhill.
I told her when I came in today, y'all, I said I feel like it's Friday already. I don't know why, but I think it's the heat.
Maybe.
It is just taking it out of me. I'm telling you.
It has been so hot, and I was telling Charles earlier today that weather's going to be great. We're not due to have any rain till Sunday,
Really?
so it is going to be hot and kind of dry, which is nice for us. So that's why it's not been as humid.
Okay, that's what it is. It's not near as bad. Well, if you don't already know, I'm Sherry Smeraglia, and I'm here with Carol Tuberville, and today we are going to talk to you about our Goldendoodles here at Teddy Bear Goldendoodles on Smeraglia Farm. We're going to talk about a different generation. So last week we talked about the F1 generation, but once you produce the F1, the next generation in line is what we call the F1B generation.
Correct.
And a lot of people have a lot of questions about it, and I thought this would be a good topic.
It is, and this is actually our most popular. This
Yes.
is when people are looking for a Goldendoodle, this is typically the generation
Yes.
that they're aiming for.
It is, and there's a lot of reasons for that, but primarily it is because when we breed with a purpose, and that is to have allergy-friendly dogs that are low to non-shedding. And of course, the Goldendoodle, the F1, is a lower shedding and more allergy-friendly. But a lot of people cannot tolerate even a 50% Golden Retriever.
Correct.
Because of the dander, the saliva, the amount of shedding. Even though ours don't always shed that much, there's still a large percentage of people that can't have the F1.
And so what the B represents is a back cross to a parent breed. So in the F1, last week we talked about how that's a purebred parent to a purebred parent, and that's a first generation hybrid. Well, what the B stands for is a back cross to one of those parent breeds. So as long as the back cross is to a poodle, it's more allergy friendly. But there are some breeders who do a back cross to the Golden Retriever to then make it more like
Super English.
Yeah,
Well, for
like
me, I've done that before. Whenever I would do a back cross when I would want more golden and just a little poodle, just to decrease the shedding. Just turn that down a notch, but still have mainly a Golden Retriever. But that's not what we're talking about today, and we rarely do that anymore.
Right, but the B does mean back cross. So as you're looking at this and you look online, it technically could mean to either parent. So as you're shopping around, you always should get a puppy from us. But as you're shopping around, do know that B could mean either parent breed.
That's true. And it's just Carol and I today. Dana's not here. Will is here behind the camera. But I am here with my phone to monitor any comments. So if you have questions or comments, feel free to ask, because I think I've already got some people chatting with me. So let me get this up and going. Okay, it's like, we've got Helen here, and Kristen, and Joe. Okay, question. Once you allow your dog on the furniture, can you teach them to stay off the sofa and the bed? Okay, that is a good question, and we will answer that in the link below. Since we're focusing today on the F1B generation, we want to kind of stay on topic, but you can teach a dog.
Yeah, I can.
You can teach old dogs new tricks.
Yeah, we can.
You can.
But with the F1B, so there's also spin-offs from that, and that'll be a future episode.
Right.
Where there's other generations that we do also. But the cool thing about the F1B is the Golden Retriever genetics kind of limit you on what colors you can get, what size you can get, and some things like that. Because there's only so many genes that a Golden Retriever is going to carry. But your poodle, now that opens up a whole world of options.
Yeah, because a Golden Retriever is one size and one color pretty much. But like she said, but the poodle, it comes in 3 different sizes, and it comes in variety of colors.
Yes.
And really there's the toy, there's the miniature, and now there's a Moyen kind of in the middle. So there's kind of a fourth. I don't think the Moyen is recognized.
Not in America.
So
in AKC, it's standard, miniature, and toy. But what's interesting is on our DNA reports, it is standard, miniature, and small. because they kind of put the two sizes together.
They do, okay.
And so it kind of is recognized a little bit differently in the DNA report, but there are technically 4 sizes.
Yes, okay. And so what happens is when you take that F1 and you breed it back to a poodle, it can go to, it can be a golden retriever, basically what you're seeing here.
Mm-hmm.
You take that F1 and then you breed it to a poodle, and that's an F1B, and you can take it to a standard poodle, and it can be a standard F1B Goldendoodle. But if you take it to a miniature, you're going to downsize it, and you're going to now have what we call the F1B medium/minis. And if you take it to a toy, then you're going to have the F1B small. Now, we're not going to make the extra small.
Correct.
We're not going to do that.
We can only go down 1 size per generation.
That's
so
right.
if we take that F1 large and breed it to a smaller poodle, it can still only be a medium. But if we bred that golden retriever to a smaller poodle and got an F1 medium, then breed that to another smaller poodle. Now we can go down 1 more size and get to small. We can't do F1 smalls, but you can do F1B smalls.
You can, and you can do it. You can have the sire can be an F1 Goldendoodle, and then the dam can be the poodle, or you can do it the other way. Either way, with the standards, you can make the F1B large, okay? But now, what can you not do?
Well, we can't go down another generation, and you don't want to breed a much bigger boy to an itty bitty girl.
Right, right. So typically we take our F1 girls, and if we want to go down a size, we then breed them to the miniature or to the toy to downsize them, and then you get the F1B little ones.
Now we also at times, so you're only by rules allowed to go down 1 size per generation, but we do at times have F1s that range really small because we go to the smaller end of the spectrum on the golden retriever, and then that gets bred to a toy poodle that's like in the 8-9 pound range. So we can actually get some F1s.
That's right.
And we actually have a boy, Hudson.
Yeah, he's tiny.
Who's tiny. He's like 12 pounds. He's itty bitty.
And he's an F1, and it's like he got his daddy's genetics and took after his daddy, and we loved it. We kept him.
Yep, and stayed tiny. We have another one, Mick Wagger, who is also super tiny. He is in the 20-ish pound range.
He's so cute too.
He is adorable. And he took after his dad, who was only 6 pounds. So he's still much bigger than his dad. But as an F1, he's technically in the extra small size range.
Yeah.
But because of his generation, he can only be what he is, and that's it. But I say all that to say that you can breed like an F1 boy to a poodle and also get the F1B, so that, like you were saying, it can be, the poodle can be either the mother or the father.
That's
it
right.
doesn't affect the hair coat. It doesn't affect the way the genes are inherited.
And you
it's gonna
can't
be
tell
very
the
similar.
difference when you look at an F1 or an F1B, and if the mom's a poodle or if the mom's a golden, you really do not see any difference in the outcome of the puppies. Because I've observed that over the years, just to see if that would happen. Like, okay, if golden moms, breed to a poodle, or an F1 girl breeds to a poodle, is it different versus if it's the male?
Right.
And I've never seen it. Have you seen anything?
No, I haven't noticed anything that's different. And so the reason why it's thought of to be different is in some, so we've talked about how hybrids occur across all of livestock, farming, agriculture, across everything. Well, there are some species that have what's known as a sex-linked trait, meaning the trait is connected to the genes for either being male or female.
Right.
So you can see some differences when you breed something like that. There just aren't traits that are like that in dogs that are something that you can see.
Yeah, now, once you have your F1B, if you would breed again to a poodle, Johanna, you asked what is an F1BB? That's what that is. It's an F1B that now you add another back cross to a poodle, and that's why you have to have 2 Bs. It means it's a back cross. It's a double back cross.
Correct.
F1BB. We do it, but when we do it, it's based on the genetics and the DNA, and we know about the genetics. And even though it's an actual F1B breeding, Carol and I were talking before we came on about, even though it technically, if you did the math, it would be 75 poodle, 25 golden. But that's not how it always shakes down when it comes to the actual genetics. So what do you see on our DNA test?
So in our DNA test, the range of golden retriever in an F1B can be anywhere from like 20% to 30% on average, but it could be like 15 to about 35% and anywhere in that span fairly easily, because remember we were talking about these marbles.
Yes.
And so if I have a jar full of poodle marbles, and we'll make them purple because it starts with a P, and I have a jar full of golden retriever marbles, and we'll make them gold because it's a golden retriever. And if I'm gonna pull marbles out of this jar, my only option of colors to grab are gold. That's all I can get. 100% of my picks are gonna be gold.
That's why all golden puppies look like Goldens.
Correct. And now when I cross it though to these purple, if I've gotta have 100 genes for the puppy and I'm pulling 50 out of each jar, there is no doubt that 50 out of this jar are gonna be purple, 50 out of this jar are gonna be gold, which means I have an exactly 50-50 cross. Now, if I take those 50 and put them in a jar, and these 50 gold and put it in a jar, now I have a jar of 100 where 50 are gold and 50 are purple, and now I have another jar that's all purple. Now when I pull out of that jar of all purple, every marble I pull is gonna be purple. So I know that at least 50 of those 100 marbles are gonna be purple. Now out of this jar, who knows? I might pull 50 that are gold. It's not likely.
The odds aren't for you.
My odds are not in my favor. And if I do that, I probably should go buy a lottery ticket.
Yeah, you should.
I could also probably pull 50 that are purple. Again, not likely. More likely is I'm gonna get around 25 of each, but probably not exactly 25 of each. I might get 26 and 24, 27 and 23, or 30 and I lost my math, 30 and 20.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna get something like that, and then that's gonna be what my percentage is. And so bear that in mind as we breed. We don't get to pick the exact genetics that go forward. It's a roll of the dice.
Yeah.
And that's what an F1B is. So when we do the BB, we're very mindful of those F1Bs in our program that are a little heavier to the retriever, and we need to bring that down just a notch. And that's where we do that BB crossing.
Yeah, and we know based on the parent that we're breeding. It's like we know what it says, that this is an F1BB or an F1B, but we know this dog is breeding like an F1.
Correct.
This dog does not carry as much poodle as the actual breeding said that this dog would have. Does that make sense? And so when we look at the dog, we look at the genetics, we make a decision on that breeding, and it is because the outcome of what we're looking for is cohesiveness. We want our dogs to all have a very teddy bear, very similar look and type, and that's why many of you guys will say, I know a Smeraglia dog anywhere. I can walk up and know it's a Smeraglia dog. Now, some dogs fall outside of the range of what should be normal. Like, for instance, today when I was showing Carol that we went live with an F1BB schnoodle, works for schnoodles and Goldendoodles. Even though the topic is Goldendoodle, it is exactly the same formula. You just trade out Schnauzer for Golden, okay? So it's all the same. But I was telling her today when we were doing Lucy Lou, if you go look back an hour or so ago on my prep school video, she had some throwback gene from somewhere, and literally she looked like an Afghan hound.
Yes.
And it was just like, no, she's only 8 pounds, so she's not big like them. But you know how they have the long hair?
It's like a Maltese hair.
Oh, yeah, Maltese, very pretty. And I was like, okay. Now that's how you make new breeds. You would take a dog like that, and you would say, I don't know where this rarity came from, but I'm keeping this one. And if it happened again and we kept another one and we breed them together, it's like you change your whole type. You can actually create a new looking breed.
You can.
Within your breeds if you just find things that you like. Well, for us, we do that. We look for what we like, what we feel is the Smeraglia looking type, and that's who we keep. We don't just breed dogs in our program because they didn't get adopted or something.
But what you're describing right there is how new breeds developed centuries ago, which is why, like last week when we were talking about coefficient of inbreeding, we were talking about how in purebred lines, there's very little genetic diversity, but that's why. Because they're looking at a dog and going, oh, I love this trait, I need to keep for this. then that breeding will happen again, and then they'll go, oh, I need to keep this, and now let me breed these two together so I can keep that trait. And that's how purebreds are created over time. And that's also where we do at times lose the genetic diversity in our purebred dogs that way, which is why we do hybrids here.
And because hybrids overall are proven to be healthier, hybrid vigor. And they are still very, very healthy even in this generation. And especially, we all are only going to keep for our program the best of the best. I know a lot of y'all don't like it because sometimes I'm pulling the very puppy that you're on the litter for, and you're like, but that was my puppy. I really was hoping for that. But see, the survival of our program depends on us keeping the best for the best for future generations of dogs.
But it doesn't mean you can't still get that puppy. You can let the office know, hey, that was mine. I know my heart is set on it, and then you can be on the list for when that parent retires. And get that
definitely. You can definitely have that. So we definitely have retiring parents going home all the time.
So the other thing really cool, we talked about size with F1Bs, but the other thing that golden retrievers only carry the color for is that white coat.
Yeah, ours are the ultra cream.
Right, so that's the only color that they carry. And so because they carry that and that's a recessive trait, basically in an F1 generation, pretty much you're gonna get either like variations on that cream color, which can range all the way from that white up to an apricot, or we can get black. That's kind of it. And outside of that, so like chocolate and party and some of this really fun
Merles
stuff.
and reds and all those. You can't get that.
Yeah, we can sometimes get Merle in F1.
Sometimes.
It's hard.
We've done that before.
Yes.
That was odd. We had actually people in our program here betting against us because you were like, it can happen.
No, we can do it.
But then some of them were like, there's no way you could get that. And we were like, it is a way.
It is a way.
And then
you
when it happened,
you have to know what you're doing.
You got to know genetics.
So on that though, so F1B is the first generation where we can see chocolate. It's where we can see those chocolate noses. It's where we can see party, because since the golden retriever doesn't carry those recessive genes, you have to have two of those genes to have it express in a puppy. The retriever doesn't have it, so we have to get an F1 who carries those genes, and then a poodle who also has those genes, and then we can get it in the F1B puppy, which is why there's so many more options within the F1B of what colorations you can get.
Yeah, and so that's because there's so many varieties of poodle colors that are acceptable.
Yes.
Lots
of fun stuff.
Now, in the U.S., the American Goldens, you've got mainly golden. It's like a blonde, a light golden. That's the standard that you're going to see in the show ring. But there are dark red Goldens in the U.S., and they basically did that. They worked and found one dog that had a redder coat. They just kept breeding redder and redder together, and that's where your redder golden retrievers are coming from. But the white ones, the ultra cream, the English, ours, these are more of your European lines. That's acceptable in the European lines, but not in the U.S.
Well, and that's also why a lot of people will say, hey, I really, really want a red F1. That's really hard for us to get because we're working with white genes, and even with the most intense red, in almost every case, it's going to dilute. It's going to make it an apricot. So to get to that deep red, we also need to get to that next generation, which is that F1B.
I remember the very first one that we had, that was Ginger Rose back in the day. And I wanted that. And of course, her mom was the golden retriever, and so we bred to like a very, very red poodle. But even as dark as we could get, she was the darkest puppy in the litter, and she was more gingery color. And I was just so in love with her. She's so great. I don't know if any of y'all remember her, but if you do, she was like that. And then you keep her out of the F1, and then you breed back to a redder poodle, and that's when you start getting these dark ones. But it takes a while to get the unique colors that you're wanting. It takes years to breed them down. I mean, it doesn't just happen like that.
Well, and because of the coloration of the golden retriever, it will camouflage at times other traits like a dilute gene.
Yes.
So in white, you can't see dilute because it's already white.
It's already,
So it's already as light as it's going to get. So if you've got a golden retriever that also has those dilute genes, even if you get red, it's going to fade over time. Even if you get black, it will fade over time. And so it's also a matter of making sure you've got a retriever that's not hiding dilute, and then your poodle that's not got that. So there's a lot to looking at those DNA reports.
So in my home, I have, Fletcher's an F1B and also London because, with my kids, we started this because of having kids that have allergies to dogs, and so I wasn't comfortable bringing a golden in my home anymore. I can't do that. And then the F1, I didn't want to risk bringing that in my home, and then some of my kids, like Joe was still living at home when they were there, and so I didn't want to risk my kids not being able to come in the home. So a lot of people are like that, especially if you're just starting your families. For whatever reason, nowadays there's more people with dog allergies than ever before in the history of mankind.
And I think it's just so many more environmental toxins.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, I don't have allergies in my household. My kids are fine. Charles is fine. I'm fine. But I am so spoiled to not having all of that hair.
Yeah.
Over our history, we've always had breeds with so much dog hair everywhere.
Yeah.
I felt like I was vacuuming every day, and that was pre-Roomba.
Yeah.
When you're doing all that. Now I do have a Roomba, but I'm so spoiled too. A dog being able to sit in my lap and me not be covered in hair.
I love
and
that.
Not, your ceiling fan turns on and you don't see little hair balls running
that's
around the
true.
house. So I'm so spoiled to that now.
Yeah,
So.
and that's like I said, we breed with a purpose, and allergy-friendly, low to non-shedding. Well, my purpose, my goal is to literally create the golden retriever that doesn't shed at all. It's going to take years, but we're working on pulling the low shed genes, breeding to low shed genes. So we're actually going to be breeding some Goldens to do that, to keep Goldens, and try to, while we're working on our Goldendoodles and perfecting our lines here, we're also working over here to produce this non-shedding golden retriever. And that'll be a big accomplishment.
It will be. And the thing with that is, that's kind of cool with all the genetic testing that we have, is centuries ago there wasn't all this DNA testing to look at. So as you were selectively breeding for certain traits, a lot of time traits that you didn't want would piggyback along for the ride, and you didn't know it till you lined them up.
Right.
Well, because we have DNA testing, we can make sure that as we're lining them up, we're not lining up things we didn't mean to.
Yeah, so if you're watching, let me know what you have. Do you have an F1, F1B, F1BB? And tell me why you chose it. We basically tell our clients when they call the adoptions team, don't get hung up on a generation. Look for the puppy that is the puppy of your dreams, unless you are severely allergic to dogs. Then let us guide you in the right direction. But if you are just like, I'm in love with this particular dog and I'm not here for somebody in my home, they don't have any dog allergies. So many people say, I'm here for the sheer purpose of, I don't want the hair all over my house. Or I just love the teddy bear look. I love that human-like face. And I will tell you that our dogs, the temperament of them, which rules, we say always here at Smeraglia, temperament rules. And our dogs have the most incredible temperaments.
They do, for sure. Like they are bred, like you said, bred for a purpose.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the shedding, it is about the personality.
And they look at you with those human-like eyes. It's almost like they just want to speak to you, And they're just like intently trying to understand you and get to know you. And so, of course, everything we're saying today about the F1B Goldendoodle, like I said, applies to the F1 or F1B Schnoodle. And of course, we have perfected, I believe, those two breeds over the years. And a lot of you go, well, then what's a Twoodle? All that is taking the best of the best and breeding them together to produce. Why not? It's the best of the best, two great breeds. You put them together, you have a more hybrid vigor, you have great intelligence, you have more allergy friendly, more low to non-shedding, and we'll talk more about that in the future. But a lot of you are calling and asking about what's the difference between an F1 versus an F1B.
Right. Well, and then we keep saying, and we're talking about how, okay, so first generation is F1 and F1B is then the next step. Well, there is another next step that you could take with an F1, and that's a future podcast, but that's an F2.
Yeah.
So if you breed an F1 to an F1, that's an F2. And those can be all over the place, because if we go back to our marble example, we've got 50 gold, 50 purple, 50 gold, 50 purple, and you can get all kinds of different combinations when you just pull the marbles out. So that's a future conversation, but that is another next step with the F1.
But just to keep for the record, here at Smeraglia, we refer to F2s that way, but a lot of you on the web and other breeders call an F1B a second generation because it's a second breeding, and they call it an F2. But when they say F2, it is not what we mean when we say F2. And sometimes there is some confusion, and we have to make sure that our adoption team clearly understands when you say F2, you're not talking about an F1 bred to an F1, just making an F2, which is still technically 50-50, supposedly. Genetics can line up different, but so many people say, oh, I want an F2 because it's the second generation breeding. That to us is an F1B. We will never use those terms, F2.
For an F1B.
Yeah, no.
If it's a back cross, it's a back cross. We use the B.
That's right. So just let's make that clear, because I'm out there reading all these breeder sites and different things like that, and I see a lot of breeders referring to that. I'm like, oh, that could cause confusion here.
Yeah, and that's definitely, so to add the clarity, so what we call an F1 is a first generation hybrid golden retriever.
First time breeding.
First time of the two purebred parents. F1B is that next step. It is a second generation, but it's an F1 back cross. So F1B, where there are other breeders that would call that an F2 because it's second generation, but it's not technically a second generation. It's a back cross. But just like we're also saying, there are other breeders that within an F1B will call an F1B bred back to a golden retriever the same thing as an F1B bred back to a poodle. So also be aware of that and ask that next question. Okay, that's an F1B, which means a back cross.
Who's the back cross to?
Who is it to? Is that to a poodle or a golden? Because it makes a lot of difference there.
That would defeat our purpose in our breeding program. Our purpose is allergy friendly, low to non-shedding. We just undid that. If we go back to a golden, it's like we just took a step backwards instead of forward.
Right.
And we're trying to go forward. We're after low to non-shedding and allergy friendly. So I hope that answers your questions today about F1Bs. If you have any other questions, and if you're looking for a beautiful F1B right now on our website at teddybeargoldendoodles.com, you can click Browse Puppies, and up top you can put Goldendoodle, and then there's the next box. You can put F1B, you can change the generation, and you can change the size, and then you can even choose your gender. It's like, put it on there, click it, and guess what happens? You will be matched with a beautiful puppy.
And for some of you guys who are watching, I can give you some like insider tips, little like some breeder hacks.
Oh.
So because of the rules that we have to follow, we can only go down one size per generation. But remember us talking about Hudson a little earlier, how we've got this super tiny boy who actually is an extra small size. Well, we actually do that quite a bit here, where we get what is a small,
supposedly,
but it's supposed to be a small. Well, technically the parent is a medium because it's an F1. But if it's a medium who, like some of the ones we have are only 20 pounds, and then we breed it to a toy poodle who is like 8 to 10 pounds,
like Pyro or something.
We now have an weight-wise an extra small litter, but by the rules, one size, it's a small. So for some of you guys who are looking for extra smalls and are on the extra small wait list, be aware that within some of these breedings that we have for F1B, that if you watch that parent size, we actually can get into that extra small size range. And our adoption team is great about saying, hey, this one's a small, but it may range to extra small. But those of you who've been waiting, that may be a way to kind of move up a little bit and get on a puppy a little faster.
Yeah, that's good to know, guys. All right, everybody. Well, you have a great day, and we'll be back next week for Coffee Chat. It was great chatting with you today. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.